Great, thanks, Chris.
Yeah, getting there. Let's see.
Perfect. And yeah, there's our meeting logistics. Thanks. So I'll go over these points. So this meeting includes virtual and in-person participation. And to help manage the discussion, I'm going to keep track of a queue here for a discussion, so I can call on people in order, and I may also mix up the order a little bit just to bring in voices. I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to participate. And also I'll be working to make sure that we have participation from the CNAC members that are joining virtually. We're gonna, Cadence is taking notes today, and we will post draft meeting minutes on the CNAC website within 2 weeks of this meeting. Those will be draft minutes that the committee will review and approve next time. And we have closed captioning available if you're joining virtually. So if you want to access that, click the CC button that's on the bottom right side of your screen. And we'll also have, we'll be taking verbal public comment during today's meeting. So you can provide public comment at any time by either calling the noise hotline, and there's numbers there for Oregon, or if you're outside of the state in Washington. And you can also email us at pdxnoise@portofportland.com. For the community members listening in, you can use the Zoom chat to submit questions or comments too. We may not answer all the questions in the meeting, but they'll be part of the meeting record. And we ask that, except for public comment and unless otherwise noted or requested, that you engage in an observer role if you're not a member of the CNAC. Next slide, please. Oh, so I think that's a placeholder for the agenda. We have printed agendas in the room. I'll just read through the topics here so that everybody's on the same page. So we're in the introduction section right now for the first 10 minutes, and then we'll have a status update on evolution of core committees by Jen Bies for about 5 minutes. And then after that, we'll have public comment and questions. And then we'll have a status update with questions and answers by Lieutenant Colonel Aaron Ewing from Oregon Air National Guard about the F-15EX program. And then we will have a decision point on whether to proceed or not with the feasibility analysis for runway 28 LR RNP approach. And then we'll have a information report out, the quarterly complaint report. And then a noise manager's update. And then we will, the committee will consider adopting the previous meeting summary from August. And that will take us to the end of the meeting. This agenda, if we go as planned, will end at 7:35, but we have up to 8 o'clock, as I mentioned before. So here's the agenda for you. I think we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so these are grouping agreements. We recognize that group agreements help support a welcoming and safe environment for committee members and community members who are listening in. And in the past, we've had some longer group agreements, if you've been to these meetings before. In order to build some consistency across the port and how the public can expect to engage with us, we're introducing these 3 agreements, and the team has begun testing these in different types of stakeholder and public meetings. So appreciate you trying these out with us. I'll go through them and describe them a little bit more. The first is sharing space. And this means we're going to try to collectively work together to ensure that every member who wants to be heard is heard. And I'll be focusing on that too, and trying to make sure that we get to hear from everybody who wants to share, who's on the committee. And then the next one there is stay engaged. So this means we want you to try to contribute to the overall success of the group by finding ways to participate that best meet your needs. And we also want to honor the time that you're giving us by focusing on the objectives of our meeting. So we're trying to follow the agenda and direct the discussion in that way, because there's been some thought put into the agenda items, and we want to stay on track with those. So if there's additional items that come up, you can always submit them to Kelly as the chair, and we'll add them to a future meetings agenda. And then the last bullet there, listen to understand. This means fully listen to your fellow members and approach different options with curiosity about what you might learn from others. So those are the group agreements we're going to try out here. And yeah, thanks for your support in using these. And thanks everybody for being here and for participating in this meeting. So that's the end of our introduction items. And Kelly, I'll let you introduce the next item.
First of all, though, I'd like to take 2 minutes. Can we go around the room?
Oh, yeah.
Introduce everybody that's here in the room and then go around. Chris, if you help me do who's on the video screen, because my bifocals don't want to kick in that far.
I mean, I can, but
I mean, you got the young eyeballs. You can-
Okay, perfect.
Much younger than Chris's. That's
Yeah.
So
mine's small.
first on our list, we have Kathy.
I hope she owns one.
Kathy, can you hear us? Okay. And then we got, is that Ian? Is still?
Lana.
Lana, okay, Lana. Okay, am I just introducing them, or do they want to introduce themselves, or?
You have the ability to unmute them,
Okay,
correct?
yes. Welcome to,
We'd like to know which jurisdiction
okay,
they're
so
representing.
they're all in different orders.
So name and city or where you're.
Okay, Karen, do you wanna introduce yourself? She needs to unmute herself. It says ask to unmute, and I did.
Okay.
She's not unmuting herself.
There you go.
There you go, Karen.
Yeah, anyway, hi, I'm Karen Meyer, and I think I'm still an at-large member, and I live in the Hazelwood neighborhood under the flight path, the southeast flight path.
And we got John.
Hi, I'm John Pozeski. I represent the city of Vancouver. I live in the Vancouver Heights, directly in line with the Crosswind runway.
And then we have S. Vetrano.
Sue.
Sue.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sue Vetrano, excuse me, and I live in Wilkes under the 28L approach.
And then we have Ron.
Hey everyone, good to see you. I'm Ron Schmidt. I live on Hayden Island, which is the only inhabited island in the city of Portland. I represent the people of Portland at CNAC, and I am underneath the flight path westbound.
And we have Pete.
Oh,
You're muted. Sorry, Pete. Pete, you're muted. Sorry.
How
How about now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, here I am, Pete DeVasto. I'm an at-large member. On the east side, 5 miles east of the airport, just south of the 28 left and right approach path.
Then Lana introduced herself, correct? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And we have Barbie.
Barbie's member of the public.
Did Kathy introduce herself?
no, I don't think so.
Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself? Alicia?
Hi, I'm Alicia Treese. I am a NEPA program manager with the National Guard Bureau, here to support Lieutenant Colonel Ewing tonight.
Thank you for joining. And then Stephen?
Hi, Stephen Conklin, Portland Air National Guard Base, Public Affairs.
We have Elena? You're muted. If you're introducing yourself, you're muted. Okay, and then I have someone that just says owner of iPhone. I'm not sure who that is. It's Sean.
Sean.
Okay, Sean.
That's the best,
Oh,
that's the
Sean.
best intro I've ever had. Sean Lochran, I'm with the Port of Portland Planning and Development, just listening in for the GARD presentation this evening. Thanks for everybody joining us.
Thank you. And that is everyone.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, this is Elena. I wasn't able to unmute myself. Sorry. Yes, I'm Elena Burgazova, Ash Creek neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually didn't introduce myself.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
Yeah.
Lana. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, Lana. I'm a representative for Gresham, City of Gresham. So that's all I know.
And June, should we start with you?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is June Reyes. I use she, her pronouns. I work at the Port of Portland as our Community Impact Program Manager.
I'm Gary Koontz, past CNAC member. I live in the community on Marine Drive, west of the airport.
Mike Yee, representing the city of Vancouver. I live in East Vancouver.
My name is Andrew Pritchard. I live in the Cully neighborhood of Northeast Portland. I live directly under the flight path of the overhead continuous descent approach.
Hi, everyone. Michelle Hollis. I am the Environmental Planning Senior Manager.
Hi, my name is Mina Mora Gonzalez. Pronouns are she, her, ella, and I am with the Community Impact Team. I'm the Program Coordinator.
I'm Amy Sides. I work in the Environmental Management Office at the Air National Guard Base.
Hi, Cadence Springy, they, them pronouns. I work for Enviro Issues. I'll be your note taker.
Hello, Bridger Weinman, he, him. I also work for Enviro Issues and I'm helping facilitate the meeting. Welcome, Joe.
Kelly Sweeney, represent the Beaumont Wilshire neighborhood for the city of Portland. And we have 2 members of the Portland Yacht Club here tonight, so distinguished members. Welcome.
3.
Who's the third?
Ron.
Ron, oh, that's right. Jeez,
We get extra votes.
you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Blair. I'm Port of Portland employee and I work in noise management. Aircraft noise abatement and management.
Jerry Gersbach, and I work where Chris works. Mike Finch, Vice Chair. I live in Gresham and represent Multnomah County at large.
Lieutenant Colonel Aaron Ewing, you might hear me referred to by Chewy in the meeting. F-15C and EX pilot, currently been flying them for 15 years with the Oregon Guard for the last 5 years. Giving you a briefing on Guard operations today.
Hello, my name is Tim Benz. I represent Clackamas County and I live way up on Mount Hood.
I'm Mark Clark and I represent Fairview, Wood Village and Troutdale. And I'm past chair.
I'm Urban Bergman. I'm one of the oldest member of the CNAC, or in those days known as NAAC, Noise Abatement Advisory Council. And I live in Cully. I live directly under the overhead, directly underneath. And I am happy to always take in the F-15 coming overhead and screaming. So my reason for being here is that I'm very unhappy about this and it does affect my health. And I would like to just raise some points down the line. I don't want to be a hog right now. Leave it up to me. I'd like to do it later.
Are you all looking for the citizenry advisory committee?
Yes, we've been trying to.
We've been in the anchor room.
On the 8th floor.
Per the instructions.
This is the anchor room.
Yeah.
Right,
It's
are
the
you gonna
eighth
go?
floor.
That's the 8th floor.
It's on the 8th floor and we even called and they said yes, go to the 8th floor.
Because if you're not, I'm going to. Joe Smith and I had a good excuse.
We all, am I signing in?
Last night, a guy from my former church, he's still there. Old man called me and said he had a doctor's appointment on short notice at 4 o'clock. It would take 15 minutes. It took 62 minutes. And
Jen?
so that's
Are you
why,
okay with mine?
but anyway, I represent,
Sure.
I live in the Irvington neighborhood, and I've been on CNAC for a long time.
Joe, thanks for helping your neighbor.
Was that Henry? No.
What?
Was that Henry?
That was Henry.
Okay. Hope it's okay.
Who did we miss?
Jen.
Oh, Jen Bees, Director of Environmental at the Port of Portland.
And then we also had some guests.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
new arrivals. Have you signed in? You mind introducing yourself?
Sure, Cynthia McDaniel. I live on Bridgeton, in the Bridgeton neighborhood, on the board of the neighborhood association.
And I'm David Hamilton. I live in far southeast Portland near the National Cemetery. So I'm just here. I'm an acoustician, so I'm here.
So I'm John McDaniel. I live as well on Bridgeton. I'm not on the board.
Gentleman over here, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm John Wygant. I've been an airport activist for 30 years or so. And have had long exposure. I'm proud of the work that we in the Air Traffic Issues Roundtable did to create a bunch of this stuff.
Hi, John. It's good to see you. You know, make yourself comfortable anywhere. Side.
Yeah, there's a couple of seats here, there's one there, and there's a few along the back.
Okay, you ready? Okay. Jen, you're up.
Okay, yeah, I think I have some dinner. So, I'm just gonna stand over here if that's okay. I just wanted to provide a really brief update. As the port's values are evolving, right, you look at the shared prosperity mission, and we have a strategic plan that has guiding principles with equity involved. We're just exploring possibilities for community engagement around all environmental issues from all of our facilities. We have a few standing committees like CNEC that are kind of narrow in focus. There's no plans yet. There's nothing to propose, but I figured to just give you an update to say we're taking a look at like, how do we engage more people around more issues? So noise is always gonna have a place at the table. We may never even change the CNEC structure, but I just want you to know, we're looking at everything at this point and trying to figure out how do we kind of engage more folks on more issues that are direct impacts from operations across all the stuff we do, which is marine terminals and aviation and business parks. So just early transparency that we're having discussions, and we'll keep you posted every step of the way, but just wanted to give you a quick update on that.
What was your name again, please?
I'm Jennifer Bees.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Public comment time. Anybody have any?
Yep, go ahead, Andrew, and if you could just state your name again to make sure that we
Absolutely.
get it in the notes.
Andrew Pritchard from the Cully neighborhood and also sospdx.org, which is the organization that I help run. Tonight, part of the reason you're here tonight is we're going to hear from the Guard about the next generation of fighter jet, and thanks for the important work that you do. But basically want to remind this group that of what's happened before, and that in the past, CNAC has gathered community input regarding the use of the OCDA, or overhead continuous descent approach. And that during those time periods, the CNAC gathered community input and assessed all this information. And after all that testing period, the Guard and the port essentially ignored many of CNAC's recommendations. So I'm here tonight to remind people that the OCDA is an ongoing public health issue, social equity issue, it's a quality of life issue. And because it's not totally on the agenda tonight, don't have the time to get completely in the weeds on it. But basically, we also believe that the port, and the guard improperly ignored both FAA and NEPA protocols regarding this. And because I know you said you've been here for 5 years, Colonel Ewing, that's basically about when there was last, shall we say, a kerfuffle about this. And we'd like to hear from the guard about how they intend to address the community's concerns and how to be a good neighbor going forward. So basically, to remind people, the OCDA, it never went away. It's still a thing. It's a serious issue. And because leadership at the guard changes once every few years, just the nature of the military, I guess, to let them know, hey, this is a thing and people are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. I should have mentioned this when I got started. I have a timer. I'm just, we're gonna have about 3 minutes for each person's comments, so that was well within the time frame. But just so you know. Other public comment?
Sure, I'm Gary Kuntz, East Columbia neighborhood, and I submitted questions for the guard to answer tonight. I'll let that be most of my talking. But like Andrew, I'm bummed about this overhead continuous descent approach. In fact, several years ago, we went through a big rigmarole testing this approach, evaluating the data, evaluating public testimony. The CNAC did their job. They voted and recommended that the approach not be allowed over the neighborhoods where I live. And the port and the guard went and had meetings that screw it, we're gonna do it anyway. I showed up at the Port Community Advisory Committee back in January, February, and testified that I feel cheated by the procedure. I still do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Sir?
Yeah, Urban Bergman, living in Cali, and I'm here. I've been arguing and trying to adjust or stop the overhead approach, the OCD. The thing is, Steve Schreiber, the past aviation director of the port, I would say that is a pretty high level position. He had witnessed trials of the OCD, and he decided that that would cause tremendous impacts, health impacts. And so he wrote a letter. And my question to the group is, who of this group lives directly underneath the OCD? Who? Not approach, but OCD. I mean, where they turn right overhead.
Right here. Right here.
Right here? Yeah. Okay. I would like to share with you folks what Steve Schreiber said. And I talked with Steve Schreiber just a few days ago. And he said, I asked him, would you stick with what you wrote then? And he said, absolutely. And then we confirmed that we had coffee with Steve Schreiber and Chris Courage, and we talked about that. They were both agreed that they were, well, I shouldn't say Chris Courage, but he was involved and he didn't have no problem with that. So my argument boils down is that Steve Schreiber, as a principal of the port, certainly should be aware of the law, and he would not go off on a tangent. Well, he clearly stated that he had responsibility under federal law to basically do something about this and not permit it. And let me read this.
About 30 seconds.
How much?
About 30 seconds.
Thank you for that, but you know, I like to say something. These meetings that we have to have citizens express their challenge, I think that is a main purpose of CNEC, at least the way I thought, I dreamed. It's not to discuss the great things that the port does on all issues. So I get pretty emotional because I spend a lot of time and spend a lot of waking hours and a lot of hours at nighttime collecting noise data. And the thing is, these things paid off.
Would you like to leave your, printout that you have for the, record? We can keep as a comment.
Yeah, and notes. So, yes, I would.
Okay.
Elaborate on the notes and leave it, yes. But anyway, it's.
We do need to make room for other people to comment too. We have other.
Well,
members of the public.
If they make it, I am willing to make some additional comments if time permits.
I was short. Can you give me my
May I
30
yield
seconds?
my 3 minutes to Urban?
So you want to cede your time so we can hear more?
Yes.
Okay, so Urban, you can have another 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to let you finish your thought and.
Yes, I cite law in the noise area of aviation. And let me read you this, notwithstanding federal preemption of much regulation concerning airports, courts have long recognized that airport proprietors retain a role in replacing noise level at their airports. What has come to be known as proprietors' exception to federal preemption was codified in the airline deregulation of 1978, which expressly reserves the right to states and local government to carry on their proprietary powers and rights as owners and operators of the airport. And in a nutshell, it says the FAA has control over the flight of aircraft. That is when the last door on the aircraft before a flight is closed until the first door at the destination open. But the airport retains the right and the power to control noise. And that's a DEQ regulation. And the port is a state agency and should be required to abide by state regulation. And I proved that when we worked and deliberated, and we got the hush house, basically, because it was either you stop any run-ups or you build a hush house and express goodwill that you are willing to work for and maintain the quality of life of residents.
Thank you. There's a person online, I think, who wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, I just keep being muted, so I couldn't say a word. Oh, well, my name is Elena Burgazova, and let me read, so I have only 3 minutes. So I live in Ash Creek neighborhood, Southwest Portland. As we have been reporting last 3.5 years, we are severely impacted by next-gen implementation. The concentrated flight path and some procedures are driving.
Elena, sorry, we're gonna make some adjustments to the audio in the room, so your minutes will start over.
It's always you,
It's just a little quiet. We want to make sure we can hear you.
Okay, let me make my speaker louder too. Okay, I'm 100%. Can you hear me okay now?
That sounds better.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I live in Ash Creek neighborhood, Southwest Portland. As we have been reporting last 3.5 years, we are severely impacted by next-gen implementation. The concentrated flight path and some procedures are driving a lot of aircraft to our residential area, creating unbearably constant noise. We are unable to recreate in our own homes. No weekends, no holidays. I have learned from August 8th meeting notes from CNEC that the noise management team is currently working with the FAA on adjusting flight paths to alleviate a similar issue for Wilkes neighborhood. We are asking to work with us to address it for Ash Creek area as well, in the same manner. So we can sit down together and discuss possible solutions instead of sending a multitude of emails. Please be advised that by sending emails or calls, we are not intending to attack. We are just trying to communicate for a response and resolution. We will continue exercising this right, and we will spread the information to various officials and media until the issue is resolved. Please understand that livability here is being destroyed and we need to act. We are really hoping for a dialogue and finding a solution to restore our quiet skies. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of our other online participants have public comment? Anybody else in the room? Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Cynthia McDaniel. I live on Bridgeton Road. I'm also a community health nurse, and I'm significantly concerned because of the noise, the increased noise that we have experienced since the overhead landing changed, and also these newest planes, especially the newest aircraft that have just been received, and all of the training apparently that has been going on. I've lived near and around North Portland Harbor for over 40 years, on and off. I've had a sailboat there. And I remember even in the 1980s, as the jets would go over, even the fighter jets would go over, we would have to stop talking, but it wasn't as loud as it is now. It is almost untenable. My smartwatch goes off saying, this is warning, warning, decibel levels are too high. And certainly when we have the overhead, what is it, the OCDA, is that what it's called, OCDA? It's incredibly amazing to watch those planes. I mean, they are incredible. They're incredible, I have to say, they're incredible, but to have them be so close to your house and to have the noise being so significant, and there's different noises now. And it is sometimes frightening. I've talked to other neighbors. I said I was also on the board of the neighborhood association. I'm not here speaking with proxy from the board, but I am speaking from other neighbors that are just very concerned that the noise is significantly louder and it's detrimental to health. If you look at studies about noise level, what it will do to anxiety, what it will do to cardiac heart issues is very concerning. So I really appreciate being able to come here and to share my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment from folks here?
Hi, Stephen Conklin on the line from
Go ahead,
the Portland Air National Guard base. I just want to throw out, I don't know if, I don't want to speak for Chewy, but I didn't prepare him for talking about the OCDA. But if that's something that we want to sidebar in the future, I would love to get back with Andrew and Gary and we can set something up. I do have a new email address since I last spoke with them, so I'll put that in the chat, but I'm very willing to continue that conversation.
And thank you. And
So Jerry contacted you a week ago, said we're gonna have this discussion. And would you guys mind submitting your questions ahead of time? Because we anticipate questions about the OCDA. So
I've received some questions, yes. I don't have all the history prior to 29 months. I wasn't here for the test studies and stuff, and I don't know what happened during that and the background behind that. I can tell you what we are doing now, and I think what some of the problems might be. So I'm happy to answer what I can. I don't have the background information on what was done with the study and the recommendations back 6, 7 years ago.
And that's something that we'd like to do, is to actually inform, like keep the guard continually informed as leadership changes over.
And we're happy to, we're trying to be good neighbors as well. And I'll try to give you some context on what I understand of the OCDA and give context on why we need to do it. But I think, like Steve, in the interest of time, it might be worth a separate sidebar at a future meeting. Because I was everything I brought was relating to the EX and the noise study and stuff like that. And I'm happy to answer questions that I can for the OCDA. in this venue without extending the meeting beyond anyone's reasonable level of consciousness tonight. If that makes sense.
Drive safely.
I think the committee can consider it for an agenda item, as a discussion item for a future meeting.
Certainly.
Any other public comment? From people who haven't made comments already? Sorry. Oh, one online.
Sue Vetrano.
Sue Vetrano, please.
Yeah, if we're talking about the noise study for the new jet, I have one major question. Why in the noise study, in the summary, did the was the document compare the new operation to the total airport operation as opposed to the new operation compared to the noise of the old operation?
It does, I'll get to the slides. It does compare F-15 versus new F-15. That's what most of the charts are for when they're doing the entire noise map decibel level impact of the community. They include every civilian airliner that includes there, but so I'll try to explain that. There definitely are charts that I'm going to show you that'll show the old plane, the F-15C versus the new one, F-15X. So it is a one-to-one apples to apples comparison in there, but when they're doing the massive environmental impact study, they do take all the aggregate noise level of the airport environment and try with that, then they can kind of pick out where the F-15 is contributing to that, if that makes sense.
I think this relates to our next agenda item in your presentation.
Maybe, I don't know if I'm next, but
Yeah.
okay.
Any public comment for folks who haven't made a comment yet? Okay.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Chewy up with the Oregon Guards F-15EX.
All right.
Yeah.
Presentation for Chewy.
All right, well, again, thank you for having me here. Always happy to be a contributor to answer questions on the military side of the house. Like I said, I've been flying F-15s on the active duty side for 12 years, been with the Guard for 5 years, been flying F-15s the whole time, C models for most of that time, and since last March, I was qualified in the X. I'm one of about 10 pilots right now that's flying both simultaneously. So the focus of this briefing is going to be on the 560-page environmental assessment, and the focus of that 560 pages is going to be on what came out of the noise analysis part of it. And also supporting me to answer any questions we have Alicia Therese, who is representing the National Guard Bureau. So think higher level DoD type management of the entire study itself. And I'm the pilot to answer operational questions. We also have on the line Steve Conklin, who works at over across the ramp at Portland with the public affairs office, that's happy to help write down questions, and anything we can't answer that the wing can, we will be sure to get back to you. Slide, please. All right, so National Environmental Policy Act is what drives this entire requirement to do these studies. Somewhat of an eye chart there. So this is a flow chart of what happens. So proposed action could, and the Air Force does this, DoD does this for anything. If we want to build a new building, if we want to construct a new drainage system, then they'll initiate an Air Force Form 813, which is basically just a request for an environmental study. From there, it kind of goes into a tree. Is it going to be a significant impact? No, or yes. Don't ask me like who makes the decision on significant impact or not, but think significant impact. Some things are obvious. We're building a new building on base. We're not changing any major waterway structures. Then they could go no. Don't ask me what a CADX is, the acronym, because I don't know. But it's a simplified process that this is obviously not going to be a major impact on the environment. So the request for an environmental study goes through, gets approved, and then they start executing. Conversely, on the right side, if it's an obvious significant impact, so think like your putting aircraft at a base that has never had aircraft before. Obviously, that's going to be a major thing for new fluids. It may be from maintenance, from fuel, oil, lubrication, etc. Constructing a new base. So sometimes it's an obvious yes. So then they go into an environmental impact study, which is a much longer process. I don't know exactly who gets into that, but like top to bottom, like congressional environmental impact study. And it's my understanding it's a 3 to 5 year process. Like if you were to put a new aircraft at a new location that has never had aircraft before. Where we were living and the decision I believe that was made was significant impact. We don't know. It's an F-15. We're replacing it with an F-15. It has new, so the general maintenance, fuel, oil, lubrication is the same as it was before. But they still do part of that in the study. They also, in the 560-page document, it talks about construction of new hangars that might be required throughout that. So a lot of that brief or report, if you guys have seen it, I know I provided it to the port to provide, and it's on the 142nd website as well. If anyone wants to dive into it in further detail, it's definitely available for you guys. So it goes from like construction, new personnel, like the total impact of what moving it would be. And part of that is the noise study. So as they conduct the analysis, so NGB was a lead agency starting at the top that proposed the 813, and we went to the basing decision was a different thing, but we have old F-15s, we need to replace them, and the X is the choice. So then we end the environmental assessment. Cardano was the company that did the noise analysis portion of this. After the noise analysis is done, there's a period for public review, public comment, and then pending no comments, the signature and the FONSI is a finding of no significant impact based from the analysis goes final. Next slide.
Cat X is categorical exclusion.
Okay. So this is kind of breaking down, if you look at that one environmental assessment block, what happens, and we'll focus kind of more on the, so the NGB was a lead agency. Some dates here for you. So notice of availability, and this study actually began back in, I want to say 2021, 22, and they didn't have a noise model to go into Noise Map, which is the software that models the F-15X for the new GE 129 engines initially. So the initial discussions were to use the Strike Eagle 229, which was a close surrogate. DOD decided that wasn't good enough, so we basically delayed the study for about a year while they took a F-15X down to Eglin with the engines that were flying currently in it, put all the sound recorders on it and modeled the differential power settings and up to full afterburner to get an accurate model of what the new engines actually sound like versus using the surrogate. So the data is as accurate as anyone could predict based on the data that went into the study. So the model that you're going to see is the new engines and all the noise that they possibly could produce. So they did all the analysis. Personnel from Cardano came out and interviewed the pilots and engineers. We talked about flight profiles for our departures, recoveries, includes the overhead procedure and the flight path we are supposed to fly. How many sorties we're expecting to fly with the thing per year. So all of the data that we provided as operators, maintainers provided their data on engine runs. We have the hush house now, obviously, where we're doing those. So the assumptions that go into it are that the new engines are in the hush house when they're doing the noise and so forth. So we provided the analysis agency, all the data we could in terms of flight profiles and whatnot to go into the noise map modeler and kicks out the report, which I'll show you in a sec. So after the year delay to get the new engines modeled and sound recorded to get an accurate representation, the draft EA was released back in February. The announcement of that was published in the Oregonian as well as on the 142nd Wings website shortly twice in the paper. It's been on the website ever since. The 30-day public review concluded on 5 March, and then the FONSI was ultimately signed on finding of no significant impact was signed on 15 May, so 5-ish months ago. Slide. So in one of those further blocks, so the noise analysis process, the data collection part is when they come out and interview the pilots, maintainers, figure out the profiles we fly to get an accurate map when they put it into the computer to calculate the noise output. And the middle section of that is basically just an eye chart on everything that goes into it. Slide. So what you'll see in the report, noise analysis results, we compared the existing conditions. So currently we have 18 primary assigned aircraft being F-15Cs. We compared the current conditions and our current flight patterns to alternative one, which is basically replacing 1-for-1, 18 F-15s with new F-15EXs. Alternative 1A was 5% afterburner takeoffs. Alternative 1B was 20% afterburner takeoffs. So you're kind of trying to bound the minimums of what the minimum we think we will do and the maximum, not just to get the outliers. I'm not saying that we are going to change procedures with and do more afterburner takeoffs with this by any means. If anything, we'd probably be able to do less because right now with the F-15, if it's hotter than 80 degrees, we do afterburner takeoffs because the takeoff roll and the ability to get away from the ground is actually when it's hot outside is we're going to be lower and we're going to be louder in the F-15. So we do afterburner to get faster so we can climb away from the ground. Being that the F-15X has more powerful engines, we might not even need to, jury's still out, but when it's hotter than 80 degrees, we can possibly still do mill power and still reach climb speed by the end of the runway. So when we were doing the analysis and the interviews, that's kind of where they bounded it in terms of afterburner takeoffs was the 5%. Because our alert jets, when they do once a week practice scramble, they're flying with live missiles. So, and we're trying to practice like we're being scrambled to get off the ground less than 15 minutes, go intercept an airliner, anything that's hijacked, and basically train for that mission. So they'll continue to do afterburner takeoffs, but it should only be 2 jets a week. 2 jets a week. Yes.
That's afterburner over the port property or until you're.
Yeah, until the end, we cancel afterburner at 250 knots or end of the runway, whichever happens first, which especially within, yes.
Unless it's 80 degrees.
So unless, same thing with it's 80 degrees, you're trying to get off the runway and get to climb speed. We want, so we'll do the same thing. So 250 knots or 80 degrees. Or 250 knots or the end of the runway, we'll cancel afterburner and then just go to military power. So full throttle without afterburner.
And I understand 2 flights a week. Is that what you said?
That's what the alert mission flies is for a practice scramble is they will do afterburner takeoffs regardless of temperature or anything is the 2 flights.
That's true a week.
What's that?
That's true a week.
Yes. As it's currently scheduled.
I hate to disagree. I mean, here and afterburner takeoff, they are much more than 2. I say more than 20. And the thing that really bothers me, why? I mean, you don't have extreme hot conditions and heavy fuel loads combined that cause requirement for maximum power. But
You're not hearing what he's saying, though. He's saying that they hit this at the end of the runway at
Yes.
250 knots.
well, that's
But they
where,
don't have to use the power afterburner to reach that. They can do it at military power. That's what, if you listen to what he's saying, that's what he's saying.
And there is, I will grant him, there are, especially with the new F-15EX, for your first flight ever in it, we are doing afterburner takeoffs because the power is so different and the ability to overspeed the gear is so different that the first time you do it, we don't want you to be in combat. So we have the instructor pilot in the back seat that your first takeoff ever will be an app. So right now we've got 10 pilots. So your first flight in it, the 10 of us do afterburner takeoffs. And I will also grant you that there are times that it's a wing, I believe wing commander. So the highest commander on the base approval that we will request afterburner takeoffs for retirement flights within the squadron, like your last flight ever. The 4-ship will do it, which happen, I don't know, once or twice a year. And sometimes we have I don't want to say demonstration flights, but visiting groups like in the summertime, they have Starbase where the school kids come to base and they're out there on the flight line watching takeoffs. So occasionally we get school groups coming to visit that are watching the takeoff. So we'll request for the wing commander approval to do afterburner and the quick climb, basically get to the runway and climb. Yeah. We call it quick climb, gate climb, but basically unrestricted up to 15,000 feet. Sometimes for visiting observers, or in the X, it'll be the first flight, the pilot's first flight in the front seat for training. And then it should not, once we get through the training, we got 10 out of 35 pilots trained. And we're kind of stopping at 10 right now until we get more aircraft. But they should then go back to normal state.
I would concur with earlier because it has been, the last 2 months, there have been so many afterburner takeoffs. I work primarily from home. I can count them all.
Yes,
I can
okay.
count them really.
Plenty or even
It's
more.
been very disturbing.
So, that's all I said, you know. I listened to it.
Tim, you have a.
Good, you tell me.
Yeah, I would like to know if we could
If you got it
postpone
now.
public questions to the end, so
Yeah.
should we get finish his
Yeah,
presentation?
we need to get through the presentation. And really, it's the CNAC members who can ask questions. And that's this, so that we can get through the agenda for today.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And I'm happy, again, we have our public affairs that I'm sure is over there taking notes as we're talking through this. So we were happy to have a discussion within ourselves and limit the amount of afterburner takeoffs to the minimum necessary. Because, I mean, the kids like to see the gate climbs.
It might appear that I'm hostile to aviation. Well, I flew gliders in Germany. I took pilot training for private license, and I got shut down because our club busted up when I was ready to solo.
I'm
When I
sorry
was
to
in the
interrupt.
military.
Can we finish the presentation, please?
Pardon me?
This isn't a public comment period. We need to finish a presentation and then the CNAC members can ask questions and make comments. But we have a whole agenda to get through tonight, and this is to respect everybody's time who's about to participate in the meeting.
I thought my comments would be rather short.
I understand, and I will definitely bring back to our group that we need to probably be more prudent on the approval of the afterburner tank, especially the C model. Unless there's a guy's retirement flight, if it was my last flight after 20 years, I'd probably want to have one last ride in the ride to the moon. But we can definitely be better stewards, I think, of when we're requesting, and we'll bring it back for discussion with the wing leadership on what situations you think is even worth asking.
I got 50 hours in front seat in a T-33. I used to come up here from Hamilton Air Force Base. It was a major wide.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, so
we need to continue the presentation.
I have nothing against it.
I hear you.
It used to be great before 9/11 to go down and the show.
Yeah.
I used to climb in the back of a jet, and then that's where they pulled me out. So, no, hey, just
I hear
got
you.
that noise.
Okay.
Pardon me for.
So the two alternatives, again, because we still kind of don't know how many aircraft we're gonna get. Right now, we are only funded to basically replace 1-for-1 F-15 with F-15X. So 18, alternative 1 is the most likely. There's a chance with additional congressional ads in the future, and we're talking 20, 30 plus, that we go up to 21. The overall noise map shouldn't change much. It's just the amount of the frequency per day. We'd probably add 2 lines twice a day. So instead of 6 and then 4 in the afternoon, it'd be 8 and 6 in the afternoon. Same takeoff times if we get to 21, but that's right now a pipe dream because it's not funded and there's a lot of people in line waiting for new jets. We have new jets, so they're going to probably leave us at 18 for the foreseeable future. So that's the alternative 2 that was analyzed. Slide, please. Assumptions. So again, when they were interviewing us back in 2021, when this study was initially started, the COVID years were there, so flying was kind of weird for everyone. The airliners were way down. And we hadn't recovered when they were here interviewing us, so we decided the best assumption we can go into this is the 2017 to 2019 3-year average. Military flying is based on how many flight hours are allocated. So we get 3,000 hours a year. You divide it by about 1.5 per sortie and that's what we were flying, 2,400 sorties. The night number is wrong. I don't know why it says 12. I think it's a typo. Should be but probably about 120 because we only fly about one night a week and we don't fly nights at all in the summer because the sun doesn't go down. So overall operations are 2% of what we do compared to the port, just for reference on when we are making the noise. Slide.
That's the next one.
All right, so a lot of the numbers you're gonna see on the chart are 65 decibels and higher. So just for frame of reference, what this chart basically shows what 65 decibels, because not everyone's a mathematician talking logarithmic scales. 65 decibels is there, vacuum cleaner at 10 feet, automobile at 100 feet. And then the highest numbers that you'll see on the charts are up to 85, 90, which is really right on the runway, which is heavy truck at 50 feet. Obviously it makes noise below that, but kind of in this noise study and the document itself, if you read all the background information, 65 decibels and up is where the sustain, if you have 65 and up for sustained periods is where hearing loss and stuff starts to become a significant factor. Slide. So here is the noise contour map for existing conditions. So we're talking F-15Cs on our current flight profile. That outer black line is the 65 decibel line. So thinking vacuum cleaner, automobile, 100 feet line for an F-15C. As you go in, I think it's by 5 decibel increments. So the next one in would be 70 decibels, then 75, then 80 plus once you're in the vicinity of the runway. And that's based on the departure, which on the 2.8s, it's runway heading because it takes you right out over the water. On the 10s, they'll give us assigned heading. So it depends on the wind, 080 or to 090, basically a left 10-degree check turn again to get us out over the runway for takeoff.
If I'll jump in here and describe for y'all that there's a difference. You all might be thinking that F-15s when they depart are way louder than that 65 out that far out because day-night level is a cumulative metric, and this represents an annual average day. So it's all the noise from aircraft, including the F-15, averaged in the times when there's no aircraft noise. And so then you end up getting an average annual day that looks like that kind of noise exposure. That is not a single event noise level as would be represented by a departure at F-15.
So this is for the port, not just the F-15.
It's the whole fleet, yep.
Slide.
It's kind of interesting that DQ requires contours down to 50. And so that really not quite the same. Yeah.
All right, let's continue with the presentation, please. Let's keep going.
So here's the F-15X. So what you see, if you can kind of just back and forth between the two slides quickly. So the F-15C kind of extended, the 65 line extends further, not necessarily wider laterally, but further out in range. So the result of that after flying this thing is with the extra power, we are reaching climb speed, which with our noise abatement, the climb speed for the F-15C or EX's best climb speed is 350 knots when you're going to get your most altitude over the shortest period of time. To balance that locally, we've changed standard operating procedures for the 15 to basically get to 300 knots and start your climb there to maintain 300 until you get to 4,000 feet and then level off to get to 350 and continue the climb. So that is what's basically modeled for the data we gave them for analysis is get to 300 knots, climb at 300 knots, 4,000 feet, level off to 350 and then continue the climb. So basically what these charts are showing you is the F-15X will get higher faster and essentially bringing that extended kind of 65 decibel line in every corresponding line there closer to the noise property. And just from experience flying it, F-15 on an average day, I'm probably 10 degrees nose high, maintaining 300 knots. And the X, I'm 20 to 25 degrees nose high. And it looks a lot more like and feels a lot more like an airliner in terms of the angle we're getting away and just how fast we're getting away from the ground. So hopefully, and the rest of these slides, if you go next, so that's 8, this is 20% afterburner. So on this one, again, it's fairly minor. So the louder takeoffs, the bubble's gonna get a little bit wider. just accounting for the more afterburner, versus 5% afterburner. And then there's not really any difference between 21, if you go to the next slide. That's 5% afterburner next. 20% afterburner. They're essentially the same noise map. The only thing that would change with 18 versus 21 jets would be the additional aircraft flying at the same time. So you'd get an extra 2 per morning, and then afternoon goes, contributing to that. But the noise bubble, if you will, doesn't necessarily change. In these, I don't have a list of all the points of interest, but you see all those little dots there. I believe the purple ones. So if you look at the chart after chart that's within the study, it'll tell you what the average, the decibel noise level at those points are throughout the day. And I think the purple ones are census tract points that when they do a census, that's where that is. Yellow ones are don't go to schools, hospitals, etc. So if you're within one of those points, the report's out there, you can absolutely open it up, find which one of those purple or yellow dots is close to you, and then figure out what the estimated decibel level at your location would be. And this accounts for departures, recoveries, etc., including the overhead. We gave them the map that we're supposed to fly in terms of the ground track and the altitudes and power settings and whatnot we would be expected to be at there. Slide. So this is an aggregate. If you take all of those 4 slides, aggregate them together, F15C versus F15EX, where the relative decibel lines are. So the solid lines, the solid green, solid light green, solid yellow, etc., are an old F15C. The dashed lines, whether it's green, light green, yellow, etc., are what we expect the F15X to be at the same noise decibel level. So you see, as you can see, the expansion of that line on either direction of the runway moves in a little bit and just gets a little bit closer to the airport. When you're on the runway, it's pretty much the same. It bumps out laterally a little bit in terms of decibel because the engines are louder. You're at the same altitude because you're on the runway. So naturally the louder engine is going to be a little bit louder. So it moves laterally a little bit, but nothing really outside of the airport property laterally in terms of anything greater. Yeah.
That spike midway, is that where you guys are getting there?
That
was a study that was done.
looks about right
Noise at
to me.
the 42nd.
It's about 2,000 foot runway, yeah.
Button right there, if you want to point at what you're talking about.
So yeah, that spike is probably where the wheels are coming off the ground and it expands a little bit, and then yeah, that would be my guess.
Yeah, I will interject that little thing right there. Is likely either arrival noise or backblast noise from airplanes using the crosswind.
Oh,
Thinking
maybe.
just a guess, but I can't really tell where the crosswind is on that. Anyway.
So again, like you said, the maps that it's aggregate noise for the airport, but when you look at what changes between F-15Cs flying and F-15X, you kind of see it here. The big, because the airport, the civilian noise wasn't changing between any of these, but the moving in decibel lines are the only thing that changed in those 2 variables was the C model was in the model with the airline traffic, or the F-15X was in the model with the airline traffic. Next slide. In case people are and there are charts upon charts and charts within the report. So I recommend you guys look at the report, and I think it's Appendix D is the noise section. If you're interested in the other environmental impacts that were looked at with construction and what else, that's in the first 300 pages of this document. But so change to existing conditions, the off airport. So this is basically talking reduction in acreages for the various scenarios at the decibel noise level. So 65 to 70 decibel noise should be a off airport reduction in about 715 acres. The only interesting one that when I was looking at this chart was 75 to 80 bumps up by +1. And if you go back one map or one slide, I'm trying to like, where is this +1 acre that's affected? The only thing I can tell is on the north runway, maybe that's off airport, is the little yellow bump that might touch Marine Drive. Kind of on either side of that. I'm like, where is it that loud that it's 80 decibels? And that's that yellow line. So I think it bumps out. If you happen to be driving by on Marine Drive, when an Eagle's taken off, you might get +1 acre of 85 decibel for
water.
Yeah. So I was trying to figure out where that extra 80 decibel off airport acre increase was, and that's my best guess. If anyone else finds it, please let me know. Back to that one. And there's a ton of data in this report, and in the interest of time, I picked the slides that I thought would kind of convey what we believe is going to happen with the F-15X. Is it climbs faster, it gets away from the ground faster, and it hopefully is quieter and a better for everyone involved. Things we haven't really explored yet are because the noise for C versus EX is, if you're at the airport, it's roughly the same, right? It's loud if you're on the ground close to the airport. We basically went under the assumption that we're doing mil power takeoffs all the time. So it might be worth further investigation that maybe afterburner takeoffs in the X are going to be quieter because we just get to 350 knots at the tower and we can start climbing at the tower and initiate our climb earlier. We were going with the assumption that we knew, and like, this is how we fly the C. We're assuming we're going to fly the X the same way. And after flying it, I know it gets to speed a lot faster just because it's more powerful. So it may be for future investigation that afterburner might be better for the community because all the noise is essentially confined to the airport environment. And now we start getting away from the ground earlier. But until anyone says you would like us to do that, we're just going to continue executing basically mil power takeoffs until we get to 300 and executing the profile we do now, 300 to 4,000 feet, and then 350 and climbing away.
What's the additional fuel flow?
It's negligible. It's probably more, but it's such a short period of time that I wouldn't even be able to quantify it for you. I mean, a C model and afterburners like 50,000 plus pounds an hour. So on EX is probably 60 would be a rough guess, but I don't think we get
30.6 pounds per second for afterburner mode.
my gauge shows pounds per hour. I'm sure the math right. I believe
That's what
it's a lot, but
technical information.
no, I believe it. Next slide. So that's my summary of the 565 page report on what I pulled out. Again, like I said, there's specific data for all of those points of interest they looked at. If you want to look up what the decibel level noise at your particular location is, it's definitely in there. And Chris and the rest of the board or myself, they have the EA or it's on the 142nd Wing website. So with that, are there any questions for the EX noise study portion of?
Okay, well, first of all, the questions that I proposed to you, you answered in what you presented tonight. So I appreciate that. So I just wanted you to know that right off the bat. So, you know, I thought I gave you some pretty broad questions, so I appreciate you answering.
Want me to
So, yeah, pass that on to the rest of my CNAC members to ask any questions, further questions.
Sir.
No.
This is for CNAC
First of all, goes to members before to anyone else. So.
Any
members.
CNAC members have questions or comments on the presentation?
I think it was a great presentation.
Let's focus on the.
You're not a member, you have to wait.
Oh, Joe, go ahead.
I'm a member.
When do you
estimate? Okay, yes.
I understand this is the best guess, that you will be once again at a state of equilibrium where the training has happened, the number of aircraft you have is gonna be stable, the number of flights are gonna be stable. What, is that this year, next year, the year after that?
We're hoping by the end of this fiscal year. So currently the C model at Portland is not funded beyond fiscal year 25. So right now, as it stands, October 1st, there will be no more C models flying at Portland, and whatever F-15s we have on the X side is what we got. We currently have two, with Boeing is going through Boeing stuff right now. On the civilian side, their machinist strike, which is now over. It wasn't technically affecting the military side, but Boeing's bottom dollar affects Boeing's bottom dollar. So we're expecting X deliveries probably to be delayed a little bit. I can't quote you on when or where, but the goal and the expectation as of 6 months ago was we would have 14 F-15Xs as of October 1st and no more C models. As a bedman, I don't think we're gonna have 14 F-15Xs, but right now, no one on the Department of Defense level has said you're gonna keep C models any longer. So if anything, if the plan stays that it is, we're gonna start divesting C models and we're not getting X replacements on time. So the number of sorties is probably going to go down, which is going to delay training the other pilots because we've kind of stopped training. We've got 10 initial instructors right now that basically to fly, because we only have two between maintenance training and just managing hours on those two. So they don't hit program maintenance level where they take them down for a month at a time to dig into them. It's not flying every day right now. So we're basically stopping at 10 pilots to keep those 10 pilots flying it about once every 2 weeks-ish, just to keep current on it. So we're kind of at a stop right now until Boeing starts delivering more jets. I would say once we get 6 F-15s on property is probably when we'll start putting the rest of the pilots through the training pipeline. And it's only it's a bunch of sims and then a 3-flight upgrade program. So you got another 20, 25 pilots that need 3 flights each. And once we get 6, we'll be flying it, my guess, 15 times a week. This is all me just throwing numbers out on the spot. So really it's dependent on Boeing delivering jets right now. And that's a big unknown. I think we're getting our next ones in the March, April timeframe. We should then start getting hopefully 2 a month until we get to 14, and then they start giving them to other people, and then they'll give us our last 4 in like 2029.
Now, somebody had told us that you had a third one that was in maintenance so that they could learn how to take it apart and put it back together.
We don't. We just have the 2 that they're, when maintenance needs to, they're taking one off the line to go
learn about
it. I think the maintainers are at a kind of steady state now too, that we've been, I think last week was the first week we've flown both of them together since we've had it, and we got it back in, I can't remember, March. I think we got the 2. So no, we only have 2 right now with more on the way.
So they were originally supposed to build us 109, the original.
Yeah.
For the entire.
Right.
All of the bases that were supposed to get them.
Mm-hmm.
And they were hoping that would keep it because the price of it is set based on that 109.
Yeah.
At like 92 million a piece or
Something like that.
Yeah, so if they start dropping the price, the number that they buy, the price is gonna go up. That's the other fallacy and all of that.
Congressional politics.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd like to see if there's any comments or questions from our CNAC members who are joining virtually. If you do, and you can unmute yourself, please raise your hand and we'll make sure to unmute you.
And again, if there's anyone that has questions on the overall big picture, like how does an EA process work, that's what Alicia Treese is here for. If not, I'll let her go after this part, because I believe she's in California, but she's here for the procedural portion of all this, but I can't answer.
Okay. We could have, I'd like to keep us about 3 minutes. We could wrap this agenda item up by about 6:50. It'll keep us on track to get through everything by 8 o'clock. So maybe one more question or comment?
From Erwin's dying.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was kind of wondering, you're talking about the environmental process. I wrote environmental documents, EAs and environmental impact statements for Bonneville for 10 years. So on that basis, I heard you, but I'm really disappointed and I'm waiting to receive a copy of an environmental assessment, basically that states finding a no significant impact, basically.
It's
I mean,
It's
just
public, yeah.
in the newspaper article or so, I would like to see the whole thing.
Yeah, it's available.
It's available. It's available.
Yes.
How do I get it?
We can get your email. I can email it to you. It's on the 142nd website.
Is it a hard copy?
Electronic PDF.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going to be satisfied with that.
Hey, Erwin, you and I have something in common. I did it for the B-1 bomber. I was actually on the ground doing it for the B-1 bomber at Dallas Air Force Base.
At what?
Dallas Air Force Base.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, well, I think we can move on to the next agenda item.
Thank you, Chewy.
I think
Thanks
somebody.
very much.
I actually need to
I have
Somebody
go
got their hand up?
after this, so if, I don't know if you want to open up the
John.
OTDHA questions right now while I'm here.
One more.
John,
I have a point of clarification. Were those, noise contours, 24-hour average? Is that what I heard you say?
That's what I said, but
I believe so.
Is there any noise contour for a takeoff?
That includes the takeoffs.
Spread over 24 hours, how
Oh.
long is the takeoff? I mean, that's the kind of a.
I mean, I would guess that, my guess is those charts are takeoff because we are not as loud when we land.
My
65 decibel
my
level.
point is, the noise that bothers me is not 24-hour noise, it's event noise.
Okay.
And I don't see any. SAL. I don't see any,
The SEL charts are in the noise report,
oh,
the
okay.
full noise report. Sorry, I don't have that data offhand, but it is in there. I definitely saw those charts. So, and again, by location, census tract, school, if it's in those points, you'll be able to find the chart with the SEL in there.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chewy.
Gary, a question for you, Chris. So written questions that were submitted a week ago aren't being covered tonight.
I looked at them and I'm happy to answer what I can't. You're talking the overhead. Please.
Well, we've kind of run out of time. I want to respect the agenda.
Right.
well, we
We
said that
haven't
we'd bring
addressed
that
those.
back again if you wanted to rehash that.
they could also
Sure.
choose to respond to them in writing and I could forward them to you. Would that work?
We'll make something work, but I thought I'd get coming here tonight to get entertained on the answers to the questions they wrote out and submitted a week ago. But we should move on maybe.
That's good. If I may, we could use this moment to opportunity to facilitate the continuing conversation and dialogue between the Guard and the public, as often represented by CNAC. And it would be a privilege to say, inform you and some others to help maintain the institutional knowledge going forward, because you're not going to be at this space forever, so that the Guard can.
And I'm actually not gonna be at the next, I'm getting replaced, so I'll have a different representative.
So
next
my
week.
point
Yeah.
exactly, but so in order to facilitate the continuing dialogue so that so that the interests of the public are served while the Guard continues to do what it has to do.
Mhm.
And so yes, if we can make that happen based on this conversation, Steve Conklin, reach out to us. You have our emails. You send us that new one and yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
I actually don't have your email. Please reach out to me. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
Okay, try this again.
Chewy?
Good to go, but I gotta fly it break at 6:30 in the morning.
Y'all need the screen back.
And just like, for the overhead,
You're on.
it's not something we're doing for fun. The baseline on why we need to train to it is when we go down range to combat, the base perimeter, the security forces, base defenders can establish kind of the perimeter. So, okay, gotcha.
Thank you.
Is that something we can add to the
Meetings?
agenda next time? A discussion on that?
Yeah.
You can get to Steve, please.
Also had approaches into Haiti.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks, Joey.
Thank you, guys.
thank you. Because I have some questions and comments on that.
Let's make sure it's agenda item next.
Yeah. As it relates to the public.
Yeah.
What was that next? Sorry, Mike, can you repeat that again for the next agenda item?
The CDOA,
Overhead.
yeah. discussion. I had some questions for the public members here.
I'm sorry, I was distracted for a second.
If we want to add that to the agenda for next time, I did have some questions as far as the public members that are here. I might, if I may have a couple minutes even, I could ask now.
So, well, I think we'll be
Hey,
over,
look.
over 8 o'clock if we keep on.
Best to provide answers to the questions that were submitted next.
I didn't see those questions.
I'm just curious, is that what you're posing?
With the comments on this, on the CDOAs, when we first did this, in 2019, 2018, it seemed as though there were some recommendations. And when we had the public day, the common comment was that, okay, they seem to be on their best behavior. Which to me indicates, okay, they're on their best behavior and they're proficient at doing these continuous descent overhead approaches. So I'm wondering is, has maybe that proficiency slipped a bit and it's not as good as it was when they were on their best behavior?
I think what you're saying is that the startup, everyone, first time flying, they start use after that or something. That's gonna, in the beginning, it's gonna cause more noise. It's my conclusion.
Right. We're talking the difference between the takeoff and the continuous descent. So perhaps an agenda item for next time. I'll talk to you, Gary, later.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, Mike.
Go ahead.
Are we all ready? I just, before I think in the public comment period, it was, some of the people that were in attendance with us online and have kind of introduced the topic here, but. So we're gonna talk about an idea of an instrument approach to runways 28 left and right that doesn't exist now. Before I start talking about it, I want to let you all know, I'm gonna be using terms like arrival and approach a lot in this presentation. And when Jerry and I talk about arrivals and we're presenting noise like flight track data that we present from our ANOM system. When we say arrival, what we're talking about is an airplane that came from some other airport and then landed at PDX in this case. But for air traffic control purposes and pilots also, their vocabulary, an arrival is a procedure that gets by instruments the aircraft crews to the Portland area, the vicinity of it, and then the approach phase is the final piece of it. You go from an arrival to an approach procedure that gets you to the runway. So it took me a while to get that in my mind. It seems kind of backwards. When you hit the runway, you have arrived. But the way the terminology works in air traffic control navigation, it's the other way. The arrival gets you to the area, and then the approach gets you to the runway. And by the way, Mike, invite you to correct me if I misspeak about any of this kind of thing.
Okay.
Like he knows what he's done.
So, these are very busy slides. They're very busy slide, a lot of things in here. And but I just want you to, and these are arrival procedures, right? And these are instrument arrivals to runway 28 left. I use the 28 lefts as an example, so we don't have to look at the slides for 28 right, because they're very similar. But the only thing I want you to pick out on these slides is that when the airplanes get to what's sort of the final approach, or where they've lined themselves up in the runway heading, they do so a long distance from the end of the runway when you're following these two procedures. The first one is that on the left is the instrument landing system. That is a very old, old school navigation. The one on the right is RNAV or GPS. So in an instrument landing system, airplanes are following a beam and the projected in the sky from a ground-based navigational aid. And in the right side of GPS, that's navigation by GPS, and they call those positions waypoints. We have others procedures where the navigation for the final segment of the flight can take airplanes and not fly in a straight line as far out away from the end of the runways. The example on the left being, again, GPS. This one's called RNAV RNP. That's required navigation performance. And then the one on the right side, that's a very old, something we call the nil visual approach. Yes, it is. And it's not used at all very much anymore, Joe. But anyway, the thing I want to point out from these two examples is they're curved, right? And you can see in the RNPs that even the final phases of the flight, the airplane is over the river at the lowest of altitudes. Right, but notice though on that graphic on the left side, there's only an approach segment or a final segment of the arrival of the approach for airplanes that have come from the east or from the north. There isn't one for airplanes that come to PDX from the south.
I mean, you can see how old it is. The last time it was amended was 11 years ago.
Yeah. And even then, probably the reason why it's changed is because
it was old by then.
The Troutdale aluminum plant used to be one of the visuals that you line up on it, doesn't exist anymore.
That was the mill.
Yeah, right. So the other thing I want to point out is the shortcoming of that mill visual. There's two really. It's a visual approach. You can't use it when the weather is poor. Right. And then it says right there in the chart, procedure not authorized at night. It's visual. You can't navigate by lights pretty much. They all look the same. Right. So two procedures here. If you, again, the RMPs work great when you can fly them. The air traffic control for the system for capacity reasons can't always accommodate them. And also not every airplane has the equipment on board, nor pilots and cockpit crews that are trained to use it. So anyway, this is what we're looking at, what is now, right? And here's what 28 left, runway 28 left, and then 28 right arrivals, as Jerry and I would call them, look like. That's just one random day in the month of August of 2024. And I blocked in the residential neighborhoods that receive this traffic when it's at its lowest altitudes, when airplanes are approaching PDX. That's in the little blue box there. And it's a little hard to see, and it might be better. I mean, you might see it better in another slide, but right there in a park in the Wilkes neighborhood, we operate a noise monitor. So as I move forward, you're going to see some examples of arrivals and the noise levels that they create.
About where's the 10-mile approach plant?
You get that one for me, Mike? You know where 10 miles might be on the map? That's
Maybe about where they converge.
Yeah, somewhere in here.
About there, yeah.
Okay.
5 miles is about 181st.
So by the time you can see that, the traffic is sort of spread out through here, right? Not functioning well, I'll use the pointer. You can see the traffic is spread out through here, right? But by the time it gets closer in, you're in the territory where aircraft aren't turning anymore. They're flying strictly vertically and in a straight line. There's not much maneuver room here.
I think the word stabilized.
There you go. Slide. So these are account by hour for the average. This is the total numbers for each hour for the month of August of 2024. So runways 28 left and 28 right. And these are for commercial aircraft, typically either regional jets, turboprops, or full-size jet airplanes. You look through the number of hours, and you can even see for the folks that live in the Wilkes neighborhood or even Argay, I think it's a significant number of arrivals on, especially 28 left. And so, and honestly, we point out that you look at this, there's a large number of operations that happen overnight as well.
Were there runways closed during this time frame?
I don't know, Gary, possibly. Oftentimes we have a lot of maintenance activity through the summer. I just simply chose a summer month because that's when the west flow is most active. So you can actually see the totals at the bottom. And I always felt kind of curious that there were more arrivals or sort of 28 right than 28 left. That might, Gary, that could be your point. There might be the reason why it looks like it does with the totals. We're on the slide. So here's an example. So this is a runway 28 left arrival example. And I got here's the blocked in area again of the Wilkes-Argate neighborhoods. And then I want to point out the two other things that are significant on a graph. Oh, and there's the noise monitor again. Right there. That's in Wilkes Park. So what you see here is two things. The little graphic on the lower left side of the screen that we call a point of closest approach. And in this example, what that is the red flight track there. Along that track, the time in which that airplane was the closest it ever got to our noise monitor was what we call a point of closest approach. And in the example here, the airplane was, about 1,200 feet. And you can see the slant distance there, 1,100 and something feet. One of the tools on Zoom is blocking my view of it. Right. So anyway, what we're reading here, that's how close the airplane got. And when it was that close, what you see in the upper right side of the slide is the noise graph of the noise event caused by that airplane, according to our noise monitoring system. But you can sort of proof this by looking at the timestamp and the PCA and comparing it to the sort of the middle of the noise event, and you'll see how well they align. Our noise monitoring system is pretty smart about that kind of stuff. So this is a Boeing 737-800, and what I've done when I chose these examples is I chose the same airplane for each example I'm about to show you, same aircraft model, not the same airline. And I chose nighttime hours, not to point out any kind of, sort of an issue here, but only because our noise monitoring system has a better chance of picking out a nice solid noise event from airplanes and segregating that from other noise sources. We're all more active during the day, right? And the noise from other sources can get in the way of our ability to measure aircraft. So that's the reason why I picked overnight events. So keep this in mind. So again, 737-800, it was about 1,200 feet from the noise monitor for this approach, and the noise event peaked at about 75 decibels.
I'm probably gonna feel really stupid when you answer this question. But looking at the left hand, you're saying the left hand is an approach profile?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's just different distances. So it's got the vertical leg of the triangle is the aircraft's altitude above mean sea level.
Okay.
Compass altitude, altimeter altitude.
Yeah.
Then the ground distance is the distance between that point on the ground and the noise monitor. And then the hypotenuse of the triangle is the overall distance from the airplane to the noise monitor. Yeah, that makes sense? So now if we compare an aircraft applying an RNP, right, the curved one that I showed you in the charts before in the slide. This is showing the ability of an aircraft flying an RMP to fly a curved path and essentially we can remain over the Columbia River Gorge until it gets far enough west that it doesn't even fly over the Wilkes neighborhood. The little curved part in the center of my little like geometric shape here, that's commercial land use. So what you see is now if you look at the point of closest approach information, that airplane is few thousand feet away rather than 1,200 feet. That slant distance in the PCA. And that's primarily the reason why rather than 75 decibels, this airplane's noise event was down around 63. So that's the benefit of that you get in being able to create some distance between the noise source and the receiver. Another example, this one, an airplane that came from the north. With the precision of the way RNPs work, once they get to along the waypoints that they use to get to the runway ends, they fly those things so precisely that you'll notice that PCA distance, that slant distance, is really almost identical to the previous example. But in this case, the noise event was about 70 decibels. Still lower by 5.
They're turning final at 2.5 miles?
Really close in, yeah. I don't know exactly how far Mike might, but if you judge, the length of the south runway right here.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
2.5 miles.
Double that or whatever, yeah. So here's an example of starting this all over again and comparing a straight in approach to runway 28 right. So you got your slant distance. It's further away, right? Because the runway is further to the north. And because it's further away with this dissipation of sound, now the noise decibel level is down about 65.
At the Wilkes Park monitoring station.
Correct. So Gary, all we can do is pick noise information from the permanent noise monitors that we operate. Same thing, this is an RMP from the east. Decibel levels right around 60. Again, so reason why essentially RMPs, because the airplane's flying a constant descent with very minimal power. So you get the benefit of that plus the greater distance because they're not flying a straight line. Example from the north, decibel level down to 60. And so this is what flight tracks from our system look like when airplanes are flying. Well, the timbers RNAV to runway 28 left. The timbers, that's an RNAV. That is an arrival procedure. And by the time they get to this point on these little things on the map here, point them out with a pointer. They're really small, but these little guys right here, and right here are the waypoints. Those are the navigation points the aircraft are flying by or over. And once they get to this one I think it's called Rogue. If they're not gonna, there's no RMP from the south. So from here, they're gonna fly a different type of final, a different type of approach. It's either gonna be radar vectors or visual, something like that. But what I also want to point out to you, and this will be more important in slides that I'm about to talk about. These little points up here along the river corridor, those are waypoints for the RMPs that you saw, an RMP that you saw before in a chart. Just keep that in mind that those are up there in the river corridor. Not used in this case because there isn't a procedure. Same thing. This time it's an approach to runway 28 right, and the waypoints are different. Because these things are so tight to the runway ends, they use a different set of waypoints for the RMPs based on which runway they're going to use. All right, Joe, these are what old milk. I had to search back in time a long ways, and it took a lot of manual search to find flight tracks for airplanes, especially jets that might have flown the mill visual back in time. But what I want to point out to you all is notice that here's that same final waypoint for the timbers. And here are the waypoints for the RMP, even though this is a visual approach. They didn't use these at all, but just coincidentally, navigating by the visual cues, they fly pretty close to them. Okay. Same idea. This is for runway 28 right. Oh. So the main point of this presentation for you all, and what Ms. Vetrano, I think, was alluding to was, well, why is there not an RMP for airplanes that come from the south? And based on some of the things that we presented to you, if there were, it might present the ability to reduce the noise experienced by those that live closest in, like Wilkes or Argay or something like that. But what I'm talking to you tonight about is the feasibility of even approaching the FAA and asking them to devise that procedure. So because look at this is my slide title here is RMP approach consideration. So I go back to that final point here on the timbers arrival, the timbers RNAV, and then if the FAA were to devise an RMP take that airplane from there to the end of the runway, they have to devise waypoints or a connection between here and there. And the challenge is when that happens, somebody in here is going to get that concentration of traffic. Just like Ms. Bergazova noticed or pointed out, that happens over here on the west side when traffic is in east flow. And then also another consideration here is you look at the RMPs that come down from the north with, airplanes coming this way, or from the east, they don't directly overfly Troutdale Airport, right? There's just to the north of it. So there's another potential, consideration and maybe another reason why we don't see an RMP from the south, but I don't know that. I'm just kind of speculating here.
So right now, it's more distributed, potentially, rather than focused over us.
Yeah, Mike, if you think, if I could scroll back to like one of my opening slides where you saw how far broadly spaced it was. So anyway, this is the last slide I have for you all. What I proposed on the agenda is that you all vote based on what you've seen and what what the concentration means for some people with RMPs. If you believe it's worthwhile for us not at this time to propose that the FAA devise one, but you all vote that it's worthwhile that the Port of Portland investigate the feasibility of doing this.
So what would be the benefit?
If you're certain neighborhoods that are closer in, you get a noise reduction benefit. And I can probably point to, I've asked the experts at Boeing and others that there'll be a fuel burn reduction too. If you do an RMP, if you do RMPs versus conventionals. Yeah, go ahead.
I used to live here in the Bridgeton neighborhood. Now I'm in one of these, and back here, the noise was much louder than here. The planes are higher, and so I find the noise now much less than it used to be.
Right, so I'll point out that you would have seen this in a previous slide. I know you wouldn't have been able to commit this to memory, but the folks that live inside that triangle or even beyond it get considerable amount of traffic now.
Yeah, that's
right?
me.
We're not introducing something new in those areas, but it's going to get concentrated down. So as you all know, you've seen this in lots of discussions we've had before. Some individuals in there are going to get this concentration of them. Another thing I'll say though is as I present to you all when we do the Fly Quiet results for every year, we're only running about 6% of all arrivals are RMPs, or the approaches, sorry, the final segment. So even introducing this, it's not, they're going to be the conventionals and the straight ins are still going to go across Wilkes. And, again, my little triangle there isn't going to receive all of this traffic. It's still going to be dispersed. But again, you all give us some feedback. Is it worthwhile to spend more time investigating this?
I think it is. The thing is, with the RMP, when you incorporate an RMP from the south, say from Rogue, and I'm not, it's been a while, you basically be flying the right edge of that triangle, or even to the right of it. So there would still be concentrated traffic over that area, and then it come back in to follow the path you see there. But it would be at a much higher altitude, and it would be a continuous descent. And I think what a lot of the noise that's happening over Fairview Troutdale is controllers descending the airplanes to 2,500 feet early. And the same thing goes with Happy Valley and so on. The controllers are actually vectoring those airplanes down to 2,500 feet, whereas if they're on the RMP, they would be, a bit higher.
Yeah, and what Mike points out is in some ways that's outreach that the noise management team needs to be doing with air traffic control. And I've said this before when we've talked about Fly Quiet, and we report airplanes that have turned early off the departures. That again is also a point of outreach for us to carry forward. But again, I'm going to ask somebody to make a motion and a vote to whether or not Jerry and I in the port should investigate more time in this or not.
So moved.
Anybody? Everybody? You wanna,
There's a motion to hold a vote?
Yeah, I just said, I so moved based on what Chris just said, so all you need now is call for a second.
All right,
Is there a second? Okay,
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anybody on the phone opposed? Can we get the yays on? Okay. Yays on the phone, please.
Or just raise your hand.
Show your hand. Or voice.
Yay, Ron Schmidt.
Karen,
Yay, John Pozeski.
John. And Laura, did we hear you?
I'm voting yes.
Did you hear me? I said aye.
Okay. All right. Okay.
we're always voting no?
No, everyone said yes.
He hasn't called yet for.
So unanimous?
Sounds like it's unanimous.
Okay.
Motion carries. Both will pursue it.
Good. You got it, Denise?
Let me know if you need my help on that.
of course, yeah, I would actually.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Dr. Gershba.
See if I can get him.
Mr. G.
So now we're moving on to the complaint report.
Yep. There it is. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, tonight's report will cover the last 3 months. As far as the number of complaints and the number of people who called them in and where they came from.
Yeah, Jerry does that.
Look, are you leaving?
Yeah, I want to.
Okay, all right, see you. Oh,
Are we taking a short break?
no.
Okay.
Are you leaving?
Yes.
Oh, hold on, for just a couple of minutes.
We're just shuffling around the room a bit, so give us 1 minute.
Slide.
Oh,
No, we haven't started. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so what I do with this report is I focus on just the aircraft noise complaints that have come in, related to PDX. And we have the 2 other airports, Hillsborough and Troutdale, but, this committee is just focused on PDX. So we received,
Behind you.
6,814 complaint calls from the last 3 months. 78 people called those in. And the number of those complaints that were related just to PDX was about 150 or so fewer than that. So 6,657 by 66 people. Next slide. When I looked at them and kind of, how many people called in, how many complaints? 81% were called in by one individual, and 16% were called into a different individual, and they're all in the same residence. They're both in the same house. And then there was a third caller that submitted 62 complaints, which was just 1% of the calls. So 90 of the 6,600 complaints were submitted by all the rest of the people in the Portland, Vancouver neighborhood.
Lana
So-
has hand up, Barry.
What's that?
Lana has hand up.
Oh, yeah, Lana, go ahead.
I don't recall putting my hand up. That must have been a mistake.
Well,
So I don't
okay.
know.
And next slide, please. So this is a monthly breakdown of the complaints that we've gotten and the two, folks that live just a ways south of the airport, south of downtown a little bit. As you can see, they've been calling for quite a while, and that's what the dark blue bars are, the number of complaints, and they're well above, well off the chart. And the light blue bars are the number of people who've called in. And that over the year has stayed fairly consistent.
So in April, he was on vacation half of the month?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that was all about. Next slide. John?
What is the nature of the complaints? Are they telephone calls, emails, letters?
It's a pretty good mix. It's mostly through our web form online.
Okay, because it seems like that 81% guy could automate his complaints and not be worth much.
They are, they're a combination of the web form and phone calls. So there's probably just about as many as I meant from either one.
Thank you.
And this slide is, it's showing the same thing, only without the input of the top three callers. So this is from just the 90%, or excuse me, the 90 complaints that came in from other folks. And again, I mean, there's a couple of months there that are a little higher than the average, but most of them are still under 50 complaints.
Those are the good weather, good weather months.
Next slide.
Next slide. And this chart is showing the number of complaints by neighborhood. And Ash Creek is the 81% folks. And then
97%.
Banks, what's that?
97%.
97%. Banks, does everybody know where Banks is?
Oh, where's the Hillsborough?
Anyway, and that's the majority of the calls is between those two neighborhoods. And then the other calls are really, they vary as far as the issues. We had an air show at the McMinnville Airport over the summer, and who was it? The Air Force show-offs. Thunderbirds, yeah. Were staged here during that air show. They do their thing at McMinnville, and then they stay here overnight. And unfortunately, they put on kind of an air show here as well. And we got a lot of attention from some of that. But yeah, it has the Wilkes area on there that shows like just 4 complaints from there, but and that had to do with a lot of what Sue Vitrano said. One thing about the Wilkes neighborhood, actually one thing about a lot of the neighborhoods around Portland is that they've been calling for a lot of years. So not everybody, we don't get as many calls now as we used to 5 years ago. So.
I wanted to say something like that. It's significant that East Columbia, Bridgeton, and Hayden Island don't show up there.
Yeah, they continue to get the overflights, and we're aware of that, but it's just not
It's no use calling.
what I do when I do the neighborhood things is I'll run a query. I'll run a report that shows all of the neighborhoods and how many calls we get, and I'll sort it by the number of calls. And so, all of these were, 4 complaints or more. And so if Bridgeton was on there with 4 complaints, but there was 20 of them, well, then I showed the top 10. So if they were 11, 12, or 13, they're not gonna show up on there. Next slide, please. Here are some of the conditions that generate noise complaints. And kind of you can see in there just with the higher numbers, which issues, which operations are generating most of the complaints. There are a few things on there like law enforcement or air ambulance that, it's something that we deal with in the Portland, Vancouver area, but we can't do anything about. And probably wouldn't want to do anything about. But
Was the GA operations training out of PDX or out of Calgary?
Hillsborough.
no, not Hillsborough, out of PDX. The GA operations where it says 10.
Yeah, I'm asking, were those airplanes flying out of PDX or were they flying out of Trouttown?
Right, out of PDX. They were doing training out of PDX when I guess when you're getting your pilot's license, you have to do so many takeoffs and landings from an airport with an active tower at night. And so, we'd have a couple planes come every once in a while and do half a dozen touch and goes. Okay, next slide. What you're seeing here is basically just the areas that the complaints have come from. There were a couple that were outside of the area, but, ever since I've been here doing this and looking at this map, the number of complaints that come between 84, or Interstate 84 to the south, the Columbia River, and I-5 and 205, that always seems to be where most of the calls come from. And that's basically because of cargo feeders, the small, UPS and FedEx planes that are picking up packages at the smaller airports around the area. Because they all leave at about the same time and they all come back about the same time. So.
But they're still not using the north-south runway much, are they?
Not for departures, but they are for arrivals.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide. And then this is a list of, each report kind of includes noise alerts that were put out, that were advertised over these last 3 months and what they included. And a lot of times the runway closures and the night flying are what generate several complaints when that happens. And it kind of messes around with the normal flight tracks, normal activity around here. So, and I think that's it. We have another slide. I think it's the questions. Okay. Hey, any questions about any of this?
So, and that slide reminds me that anybody who missed the tour of that really missed something. That is just an incredible place.
What's that, the terminal, the new
Yes.
terminal building? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Has anybody here not seen that yet?
It's worth sticking
Wow.
in.
I've seen it when it was under construction.
I saw it tonight looking for this meeting.
Oh, yeah.
You rushed.
Any other questions or comments or anything?
Thank you, Jerry.
Nope. Okay.
Chris Blair, noise manager's update.
I don't have much for you all, but a couple things I'll say is, for a while in recent past, we had gotten to a point where we let our technology age, and in some cases age badly, or to the point where it was in really rough shape. And I want to point out, we got renewed support for our efforts when we went through a reorganization for the port and landed in the environmental group under Ms. Bees. And we were able to start programming updates to our systems when we went through that reorganization. So I'm really pleased with that. And we started, the directions I got as somebody who's looked at to maintain our technology was to try to program one system per year for renewal and upgrades. And I haven't talked about that much until now, but I want to let you know that we started with the technology we use to record air traffic control conversations between air crews and air traffic controllers. We call that a digital logger, and that just helps us piece together what sort of give us situational awareness of why things have not gone on noise abatement routes and things like that. That system is also valuable because we have people in our planning group that use that data. We have our wildlife staff, when we have bird strikes, they piece together the evidence of those kinds of things, and part of that evidence often comes from the reports from the pilots when those things have happened and so forth. So we started with that. Thankfully, that system got upgraded about 2 years ago now. And it was really important. The system we were operating got to the point where all that audio was so heavily garbled, you couldn't make out what people were saying. So it got to the point where it was almost unusable at times. So I'm so very pleased that we've gotten the support to upgrade that, and we've done that. Big improvement for us. Literally just within the last 2 weeks, we went through an upgrade where we replaced all the hardware for all of our 13 existing noise monitors. That's all brand new. Literally, we haven't even tested it yet. I have literally a meeting to look at pictures and talk about that tomorrow. You all might remember we used to have 14. One of them was in the driveway of the Port of Vancouver's property on the riverfront, whereas now all the brand new all the fancy Vancouver waterfront developments. So our noise monitor there lost its home, and it's in storage over the maintenance facility. But anyway, I'm proud to report that all has been replaced. So we'll continue to run our noise monitors, we call them RMTs, remote monitoring terminals. The next step for us, we at times showed you flight tracks, or what we call an MLAT system. And the port built that system years and years ago because we couldn't flight track the activity out of Hillsborough Airport. That has changed, however. The FAA provides us with flight track data for Hillsborough and throughout the other GA airports, and that data is high quality now, but we now rely on our multilateration MLAT system for our ability to track military traffic in the Portland Police Bureau and things like that. And that system is end of life. It's really old, and it's a need of help. We're about to sign a contract with a vendor to replace some of that system's capability with a new system. We'll be able to, even if our old MLAT system goes away, we'll be able to carry on tracking things like government operations and things like that. There are some portions of our old system that we rely on to track military, and we may not be able to maintain that. Sorry to say. That is difficult to do, and we're going to do our best, but we may not long-term be able to sustain that, but we're going to try. That again, that's work that's ongoing right now, and we're looking to sign contracts for two different approaches. One is a new system, and one is to try to buy some more life of our old system until we can find a replacement for that. Anyway, that's I want to tell you about technology, and then I'm gonna put Mr. Gersbach on the spot here. I don't know if he's ever said this to you all, but as sometime in June, he reached a point where he has put in 35 years with the port. Oh, 35 years.
35 wonderful.
Yeah.
Your wife.
Congratulations, Jerry.
The port every year has a like a time of service honorary kind of presentation that it does, that nobody gives a presentation. We have slides that run in our common area. And they point out people that have reached milestones in 5-year increments, so 5 through 35 or even higher. Jerry was the sole person this year at 35.
At 30.
All right, Jerry.
And when he started, he had hair.
Oh, yeah, actually.
That's all I've got for you.
Okay, thank you, guys.
And what I wanted to say too is that, this coming February will be my last CNAT. So now our next will be it. So my last day is March 28th.
Retirement.
You can't do that.
Deserves that for 35 years.
You're hanging it up.
I'm what?
You're hanging it up.
apron up, huh?
Hanging that up. I'm gonna go spend my time saving something. I'm not sure what yet. I'll save.
Good for it. Okay, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Bridget.
All right, next is the adopt the previous meeting summary. So I think we have
11 people. I counted them.
I think we have everybody here.
Well, no, there's 12 with Laura on.
Yeah, well, Tim's gone, but you still have a quorum.
11.
Laura's still on.
No, but Tim left, so
Tim left.
we have 11 now.
Still have
Back
11.
So I think does somebody make a motion to approve the minutes and then we do a vote, just like the.
I want to point out before Joe has pointed out to us that there is something that he would appreciate us correcting.
Okay.
And I'm sure Joe will say, with the correction I propose, I will support it, which we
I
will
was
do.
about to make sure that that happened.
We'll
And so
do.
y'all know what that was. There was a statement that airplanes were supposed to be 3,000 feet above the threshold, and that clearly was a serious mistake.
So we'll strike that statement from the meeting minutes.
Well, not strike it, just get to where the 3,000 foot it actually is.
We will plug in the wording that Joe suggested for us.
Yeah.
There was a so when they were talking about the overhead approach, they said the initial approach was, you speak to it, Joe.
Well, I was not clear where it was, and I think Mike was the one who pointed out it probably was in what's called initial.
Right.
In approach FAA jargon.
Yeah, because they cross over the end of the runway because they're doing that circle to land. They're up there pretty high still. Yeah, when they first time they go across the runway threshold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
I'm pretty sure
2,500,
that's 4,000.
I don't recall the exact number, Gary.
3,000.
3,000 and 250. Not
3,000.
So I'm not super clear on what I should say.
Well, he just made the motion.
I've just been assured that the change has been made, and therefore I'm prepared to vote aye.
Okay.
So, motion.
is that a motion?
Minutes?
Somebody pull
Second.
We need a motion?
You need a motion.
I move we approve.
Mike seconded
Mike
it.
seconded. All in favor? Hands
Aye.
up in the screen, please. For voice.
Got 5 in the room.
Aye.
Yep. 4. Any opposed? I think it's unanimous.
Motion carries.
Okay. And that brings us to the end of our meeting tonight. Thank you very much, everybody. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, Bridget.
Sounds good.
No, you said that.
You've been.
Say what? Really what?
How have you been?
Hi, good to see you again.
Good seeing you.
Is everyone okay?
Yeah.